and welcome back to another review. Today we're going to be having a look at Lethal Weapon 3, so one more to go, the Lethal Weapon movies. This was made in 1992, again directed by Richard Donner, starring Mel Gibson, Danny Glover, Joe Pesci and Rene Russo is in this one as Lorna Cole. This is a funny film, this one, because really the villain in this, or basically just the antagonist, they really don't have much of a role. I'll be getting into that a little bit as the review goes on, but the bad dude in this really doesn't have a lot going on. It's mainly sort of a Riggs Murtaugh type of story. Yeah, that, like I say, there is a villain in it, but really not a lot going on in the sense of sort of, like I say, a villain as such. Rene Russo, as I say, plays Lorna Cole, who is sort of like the female equivalent of Riggs. That's sort of her purpose here. I think in the original script, he was actually meant to be a guy. There really is no need as well for Leo Getz to be in this film, other than just sort of, okay, yeah, fans of the previous film will recognise him and they'll be like, okay, yeah, Joe Pesci's Leo Getz was in that film. Oh, he's in this one as well. There's really no need for Leo to be in this film, like doing real estate and things like that. But, the people thought, yeah, okay, he was popular in the last film, let's get him back in this one. It's that familiarity that people think, oh, yeah, I liked him in that. He's in this one as well. But say, made in 1992. The film starts with a bomb in a building. Riggs and Murtaugh go in. We get made a point here that Roger is only 8 days until retirement. I mean, usual things, getting too old for it, 8 days till retirement. They really do drive that on home that Murtaugh is soon retiring. Good banter here between the two about what wire to cut, etc. Or the bomb blows up. That opening scene is quite fun. Like I say, you get that dynamic between Riggs and Murtaugh again straight away. And like I said in my previous Lethal Weapon 2 review, the Riggs we get now, especially in Lethal Weapon 3, is very, very, very different to what we originally got in Lethal Weapon 1. I mean, he changed in Lethal Weapon 2, but in this film, he is very different. This is a different Riggs altogether, so don't expect the classic hard-edged sort of Martin Riggs you got in the first film. They did, like I say, they ventured more towards the comedy side. They're making it a bit more comedic and a bit more, that's what this character is like about, when he wasn't originally at all. And also in this film, it's interesting to know, I found it's really, to my knowledge, the first time we actually get to see these two in uniform sort of patrolling the streets. Very different, as I say. And if you look at the example, talking about Riggs and how much he's changed, if you look at when they're on the beat and they're in uniform and they're just patrolling around, they just hassle this random guy on the street for jaywalking just because they can. It actually comes across almost like bullying. This guy was just minding his own business, and just for their own amusement, they think, okay, let's mock him, and just, as I say, it almost comes across like, that could have been anybody, but Riggs and Murtaugh just decide to pick on him, just because they can. It almost comes across like evil, like, why would you do that? You're a complete jerk or something. So yeah, they just hassle this random guy. So as always, Riggs spots fake armoured, like he always spots something. He'll be talking, wherever Riggs is, whether he's at a restaurant, talking to Roger, whatever he's doing, he'll always see something at the corner of his eye. There's always something happening right next to Riggs or in the corner from Riggs. Wherever he is, he'll always spot some bad dudes, right? So he spots this like fake armoured truck taking some cash, then like a chase ensues, and I love how Riggs is always ready to go. He's always ready to go, straight into action, no matter what time of day it is. They capture one of the guys from this chase and the other one gets away. So I'm just going through the plot quite quickly. Leo is trying to sell Roger's house. To be honest, in the amount of trouble he's had, in the first two films, to be honest, with like Roger and like people breaking in, I don't blame him for wanting to sell his house, because it seems, like I say, the criminals always know where he is, what his name is, where his family, they always seem to know. So I do not blame him at all for wanting for Roger trying to sell his house. Then we meet Jack Travis, who is like this former cop who is now doing real estate and arms dealing. So this is our villain. This is like the main antagonist of the film. So the guy who gets away from the chase here earlier, he's like buried under cement by him for screwing up. Then Riggs saves Rene, Roger's daughter, from this guy that seems to be hassling her, even though it is a film set. And why is it whenever, like, especially this era, whenever they have like a director that's in a movie or a scene of like a film happening within a film, when you see the director, it's always, the resemblance is always like Steven Spielberg. This film, if you look at the Mortal Kombat 1995 movie, Johnny Cage's director is sort of Spielberg-esque. There's always based on like that Spielberg look, like the characteristics of Steven Spielberg. We find out the people from the chase were using armor-piercing bullets. Then Rene Russo for Internal Affairs shows up. You have to love how at the end of the last film they basically kill and murder people who work for the consulate, saying how they were untouchable. And this film starts with them blowing up a building, but the captain is still more than happy to just keep them on the force. You know, they haven't done anything wrong. You know, they've blown up buildings. They were not allowed to touch that guy at the end of the second film, but they kill him anyway. It seems no matter what they do, Riggs and Murtaugh, they can just get away with it. The Chief's always going to be on their side, so they can blow anything up. They can go crazy. You know, what a job to have. He's always happy with their work. So Jack Travis, the main villain, he just waltzes into the cop shop and kills the guy they caught. And it's funny now, not at the same time as anybody else, you know, with no one knowing he is or running into people. He just waltzes into the cop shop. Nobody straight away detects who he is. He's just able to go into the room where the suspect is, totally uncompromised, just goes in. I know he's a former cop and everything, but didn't nobody sort of question him when he walked in? You know, I've never seen you before, I haven't seen you, you know, he just walks in, no problem. So no cover on his face or anything like that. Camera picks him up and Leo recognises him. He used to get him hockey tickets. So they go to a game where they assume Jack is going to be. Leo, Roger and Riggs. And again, I love how Leo is with, you know, when I said in the second film where he just takes Riggs and Murtaugh straight to the gangsters. He's the same here. He's not scared about letting these dangerous criminals be aware that he sold them out. Leo will just go along just willy-nilly and just be like, yeah, because obviously Jack Travis is the main villain. Leo's like, yeah, I used to get him hockey tickets, and Leo's like, I'll go along with you. So he's just fearless. Leo is absolutely fearless. I mean, if he's meant to be sort of a scaredy cat and a bit, you know, not too good at combat and things like that, and sort of work going against criminals, I don't see why it makes any sense for him to go along, but he does anyway. And he gets hit. He actually gets shot with a flesh wound. For the first 45-50 minutes of this film, they really are just killing time here with Lethal Weapon 3. It doesn't really seem to go anywhere. I'm not sure what everybody's take is on this film. I'm not sure, if everybody thinks it's one of their favourites. And there are little good bits in it. I just think in many ways this is where the wheels did start to fall off quite badly, because as I say, that first 50 minutes. There's really not a lot that happens. As I say, the villain is not that intimidating. It's not there's a real urgency or hassle or intimidation from the villain. He's just there is a bad guy there, but he's sort of just sitting back the whole time. Like I say, it's mainly just about Riggs and Murtaugh. Doesn't really go anywhere nearly for that first hour. Then later again, funny how Riggs is always in the right place at the right time, witnesses a drug deal whilst getting food. As I say, no matter where he is, he'll always clock something. Riggs will always be in that place. He'll see some people dealing drugs. He'll see some people, doing some counterfeiting cash, whatever it may be, he will see it. So they witness this drug deal whilst getting food. They open fire and Roger kills the kid who happens to be a friend of his son. Yet again, it goes from super light-hearted comedy to shooting one of your son's friends. It's dark to light, and the tonal shift of this can sometimes be very jarring. It can, like I said in my Lethal Weapon 2 review, I understand they want to have the comedy and have the action, but it goes from sort of just laughing about, joking around with your buddy to, okay, I've just killed one of my son's friends. You know, that's quite a difference there, just joking around, the way it goes from not just a tiny bit different to what it was, it really goes from one end of the spectrum to the other. Like I say, it can be very sort of, okay, so just killed your son's friend, but just, laughing and joking the minute before. So we find out the guns on the street were stolen from a police department. So Riggs and Cole go to a place, Billy, who was the suspect that was calling, and he was making phone calls to, and they find dealers with guns, and here we learn that Cole knows kung fu and she's just as much as a badass as what Riggs is. Riggs befriends like a dog, then back to hers for an evening, and we learn that she likes Three Stooges, just like Riggs does, and starts comparing wounds, just like in that scene from Jaws. Worth noting at this point that Roger sort of disappears from the film. Like Danny Glover, he sort of disappears. It becomes very much sort of rooted in Riggs getting to know Lorna Cole. I will say the Rene Russo Mel Gibson dynamic here is definitely not as forced as it was with Patsy Kensit and Mel Gibson in the second film. I mean, that was just lazy in the second film. Just like the fact she just found Riggs so charming, no matter what he did, no matter what he said. She would just laugh and, just be all giggly and just, I love Riggs. There was no sort of chemistry here. Here, between Cole and Riggs, there is that sort of, there is, Riggs has found his equal, which I think is interesting. I think that does work. I'd say Danny Glover sort of disappears, they really focus on mainly on just the romance between Cole and Riggs. I will say it's definitely not as forced as the first film. Then we have one of the best scenes in all the series, I think, with Riggs and Murtaugh on the boat, and Riggs is, Murtaugh is drunk, and can't believe what he has done, and they both start crying, and Riggs says, "I have 3 beautiful kids, and they're yours, and I live in your life," and they're both crying, and it's a very powerful scene. It's probably the most dramatic, emotional scene in the whole of to my mind, the most dramatic scene in the whole Lethal Weapon films, where like I said, Roger's getting drunk, he can't believe what he's done, and Riggs is just bawling his eyes out, saying, how dare you, I'm part of your life, I love your family, and things like that. And it's a very good, powerful scene. It would have been nice if they would have had a scene of Murtaugh actually talking to his wife about what he had done, and to his family as he struggles with what's happened. It's like he only really opens to Riggs. It would have been nice if they showed a scene of Murtaugh and his wife, with him with her sort of consoling him. I think that would have just added a bit more to Murtaugh's grief and his struggle with what he's going through, but they don't do that. So then Jack kidnaps their chief, their captain, and whilst he's just leaning over this back of this cop car in the station in broad daylight. Again, no one's asked who he is and what he is doing. He's just leaning over this car in broad daylight, manages to just take the chief hostage and going to use him as cover to get basically some more guns out, some more weapons. I mean, how does he know where to find him? He says at one point, to find the guns, sorry. I mean, he says at one point, the world of computers. And that's meant to just explain everything. He knows where the world of computers. It's not explained how he always knows where the guns are, where they're kept. Or, the police could have moved them from one department to another, or one security lockup to another. But all we get for the whole explanation of that is the world of computers. Right? Okay, fair enough. So Riggs, Murtaugh and Cole go after them with this rookie young cop. And this is such a plot. This bit in particular really annoyed me, because he says he idolises these two, and you just know this kid is going to die. Before he even sets off with Riggs and Murtaugh, he is going to die. He's like, "Can I join you guys? Just love what you do. I'm a big fan of all this kind of thing." He's a rookie cop. He's new to the force and everything, and he dies. Of course he dies. And and then Murtaugh, just out of nowhere, he's fine with what he did, like where he killed his son's friend. He's suddenly fine. He's over it. It's not like the grief carried on and he gradually got it. He's just all of a sudden, well, I had to do what I had to do, and he's fine, and he's back to just being normal Roger Murtaugh. There's no sort of payoff or payoffs with what he did, because they had this idea of him really struggling with his actions and what he did, but they don't do anything with it. They don't, unfortunately, give it it doesn't change him in any way. He just goes back to doing what he usually does. Okay, I was justified to do that. So yeah, he's just basically totally over it. Yeah, again we have, like I say, Riggs running. He's always running after these guys. He always has to run, as we do in most chases and high speed pursuits in the Lethal Weapon films. Then after this, randomly, Leo is told by them to go and check out a housing project, randomly. They just, for whatever reason, they say, go and check out this housing project, obviously what Jack's running. So when they go there are criminals, not, there's criminals there, but they're not all using armor-piercing bullets at this point, and I thought they were all using armor-piercing bullets. I just thought that's what they would do. I thought they all had armor-piercing bullets, but obviously at this point, for some reason, they haven't. I mean, so was he just, with Jack, was he just into construction? Is this what he's doing? I know he's got these housing projects and things like that, and that's sort of where he does his deals and things, but that's our criminal mastermind. He's just got a housing construction site, and just takes guns from the police. That's basically all the villain is doing. That's his whole, plan here. His big mastermind development plan, regarding some new houses. The trouble is, the villain here is just not given enough screen time. Like I said, I think that's my biggest gripe with this movie, that I just don't think they really gave the villain enough motives for what he was doing. He definitely wasn't threatening enough in this movie. It just wasn't menacing enough or enough to do. And he just, like I say, he just has such little motive. And it's not against the actor or anything like that. It's just against the sense of they've got to have an antagonist, but they don't really know what to do with him. Okay, he's got this, setting up these new houses, he's got this construction, company and all this, but of this housing project, but he just basically steals weapons from the police, and that's it. That is it. So he's a renegade cop, we get it, but all he does is steal guns and sell them. That's it. If he is a former cop and they have video footage of him and he's got a local construction company and he goes to hockey games, surely they could have tracked him down a lot easier than what they did. Surely, with all that information, with all them things, they probably could have found Jack a lot quicker than what they did. It's like he's a former cop. He goes out publicly to hockey games. He's got a construction company. All this stuff, and they're just like, that surely they could have apprehended him a bit earlier. They got footage of him going in, killing the suspects. But no, it takes them the whole movie to figure out where he is and what's going on. It ends with Roger in the bath, the beginning of the first film, saying he isn't retiring, and that is basically the end of the movie. So there's a problem. There's just as many problems with this film as there is with Lethal Weapon 2. I know a lot of people don't like Lethal Weapon 3. It was the Lethal Weapon that I remember coming out when I was young. I remember it being at the cinema when I was, like I say, about 6 or 7 years old. I do remember it coming out, and it was everywhere. Lethal Weapon 3 was everywhere at the time. It was a huge, big release. I remember there was games on the Super Nintendo and things like that. But yeah, it's nothing to. I think, like I said in previous Lethal Weapon reviews, the joy with these films is watching Mel Gibson and Danny Glover act together, because they've got lovely, wonderful chemistry between the two. It's just regarding the characters themselves, there's a lot here that doesn't make sense. There's a lot here where it's like, that wouldn't happen, like Leo just going into real estate, Murtaugh just suddenly getting over, randomly killing his son's friend, even though 5 minutes before he was completely distraught. The fact they couldn't find Jack Travis quicker than they did, the rookie cop, who's all naive and new to the force, getting killed, such a typical plot thing to do. Just little things that don't, that do sort of hinder it a little bit, but it is still enjoyable. Overall, I would say, like I said, mainly you do watch these films for that, like I said, the chemistry between Glover and Gibson. But thank you very much for watching. There's just one more Lethal Weapon film to go, with my man Jet Li in it, and I'll try and do that for you soon. But I say thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the review, and I'll see you soon.